Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. This morning we started with the topic living in the present, where we made a point that present does not have any dimension. Either it is past or it is future, because present has no duration. Any duration will involve past or future. Any duration, say 1 second, also will involve past as well as future. So present has no dimension in time, so no dimension in place, so no limitation in time, no limitation in place, no limitation in every way. Therefore, present amounts to limitless. Then we further discussed where that limitless can be. If the present does not have dimension, does not have attributes, it cannot become the object of my experience, cannot become the object of my perception, because whatever I perceive through senses, whatever I experience through my mind, has to have some attributes. If the present is attributeless, then it cannot become the object of experience in the conventional sense. In the conventional sense, what we mean by experience is that which involves a duality or division of the experiencer and experienced, the subject and the object, where the subject is separate from the object of experience, where the object does not include the subject, where as though the subject is excluded by the object, vice versa. And therefore it involves exclusion, separatedness, division. And therefore it makes each of them limited. Subject makes the object limited because subject does not include the object. Object makes subject limited because it doesn't include the subject. As I said in the morning, the idea of I, you is not included. Therefore, this present or the limitless cannot be experienced in a conventional sense involving the subject-object duality. Then what would be the nature of experience? What will be the nature of living in the present? If the present cannot be experienced by me, then how can I live in the present? So Vedanta teaches that the present is of the nature of experience. Present means just being aware, being myself. So this present, the dimensionless, the limitless, which cannot be objectified, has to be the nature of the very subject, nature of myself. So present is nothing but the self. Which means that I am the present, I am the limitless. And Chandogya Upanishad explains, Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. Bhuma means Brahman, the limitless. That which is limitless is happiness. Sukham, happiness is defined there. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. That which is happiness, that which is limitless is happiness. Then it says further, Nalpe sukham asti, there cannot be sukham or happiness in alpam, that which is limited. Anything limited in time, limited in place, limited in attributes is alpam. Therefore, it cannot be happiness. And therefore, if present is a self, is limitless, then there is also sukham. So, this simple inquiry or deliberation upon what is present leads us to understand that present means attributeless, dimensionless, limitless. And limitless means happiness. And happiness, and that is not objectified, that is therefore my own self, which is of the nature of experience itself. What do you mean, Swami, when you say nature of experience? That which is always experienced. The self is self-revealing, is consciousness, and therefore always experienced. I am always aware of the self. It cannot be that I am not aware of the self, I am not aware of myself. Awareness of anything else presupposes the awareness of myself. My awareness of you presupposes me, the subject, who is aware of things. And therefore, any experience presupposes the self, and that is awareness. So Atma, the self, limitless, happiness, also awareness, self-revealing. Always experienced. And therefore, it is not necessary to experience the self. Meaning, it is not necessary to make self the object of experience. Meaning that there is no need for us to try to experience in a conventional sense that I try to experience this part. In that manner, there is no need to try to experience the self. We'll talk about that. But so important thing is that self is self-revealing. I always know I am. I do not need any attempt on my part to determine whether I am there or not. That I am is always self-revealing. And how do I know that I am? I just know because I am reveals itself. Self-existing, self-revealing, happiness, self-sufficient, that is the nature of self, that is what we call present. So living in the present means living in the self, meaning just being myself. I already am the present, I already am the limitless and happiness. All that is needed to be done is just being myself. So experiencing self is just being myself. But then I am Swamiji, I am myself. What's the problem there? Why do I have to be myself? Am I not myself? I am. myself. But unfortunately, in that myself, some other things also get added up. When I think of myself, certainly the self is there. Along with that, some other entities also intrude into that. So I know myself always. Who am I? I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm tall, I'm short. I know. I'm happy, I'm unhappy, I know. I'm bright, I'm successful, I'm intelligent, I'm not so intelligent, I know. So I always know myself. You can say I always experience myself, but what's happening? That along with I am this man, woman, happy, unhappy, tall, short, successful, not successful, bright, not bright. This gets lumped together. So I always experience myself. But unfortunately, in that self, along with the self, some other thing also is lumped together. And I do not know that what is lumped together is not myself. Meaning that in my experience of myself, or in my awareness of myself, two entities are involved. I am, which is the true nature of myself, and this man, woman, happy, unhappy, which are not the nature of self, those two are lumped together. And so, Vedanta teaches that what is meant by experiencing myself is being myself, knowing myself, recognize that as I understand myself to be, that there is a lumping together of two entities, the self and non-self. Therefore, the ability to recognize that Purusha or person, man doesn't belong to I. Woman is not I. Happy is not I. Unhappy is not I. Great is not I. Small is not I. Bright is not I. Dull is not I. How do I know? By creating a distance between myself and what I am not. Vedanta calls it Atma Anatma Viveka, separating the Atma from Anatma. As in the famous composition of Adi Shankaracharya, where Shankaracharya describes first what I am not, Mano Buddhya Hankara Chittani Naham Nacha Shrotra Jihve Nacha Ghrana Netre Nacha Vyomhumir Na Tejo Navayu. He says, Nacha Manaha Buddhi Ahankara Chittam, the mind, Buddhi, these different states of mind I am not. Nacha Shrotra Jihve Nacha Ghrana Netre. Shrotram, the faculty of hearing, Netra, the faculty of seeing, these organs of perceptions I am not. Nacha Vyomhumir, that the Vyoma, the space, air, water, five elements I am not. And therefore the body made of those five elements I am not. And further goes on to describe, I am not the organs of action, I am not the speech, I am not the prana. Meaning that, which I usually take, what is the need to say this? Shankaracharya doesn't say I am not the table. In that composition, doesn't say I am not the wall, I am not ceiling, I am not table, I am not tree. As we are coming here, the bleating of the cow, I am not the cow. It's an interesting place. This year only I noticed that there is a croc also, so that I am not that. It's a cock I am not. Peacock I am not. Meaning that no need to say this thing. Shankaracharya doesn't say that because we don't need to be told that. Without acharyas telling us, we know I am not this cow, I am not the buffalo, I am not chair, I am not table, I don't need to tell. So I know very much what I am not. But when it comes to this costume of body, mind, sense complex, then that is where, even though that I am not, I declare to be I, therefore it says, Mana Buddhi I am not. Then who is I? Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham, the Chit consciousness I am. Ananda, happiness I am. Shiva, auspiciousness I am. The very best things I am. Whatever the most noble, what is the most beautiful you can imagine, that's what you are, and that's what I am. Which is great news. I don't have to be. Just recognize. Now this recognition requires a certain disposition of mind. We'll accept that. As I am right now, I see myself as this, man, woman, etc., etc. I do require a certain disposition of mind wherein I can see the body, mind, etc. as separate. I see myself separate from them. And therefore, in order to live in the present, to be the present, to be the self, I do need the ability to separate the self from the non-self, because without my effort, they seem to have lumped it together, meaning that I am born with this kind of notions about myself. Unfortunately, we do not know that I am a man or woman is a notion. I think that's the reality about myself. And then I struggle with that. On one hand, I declare that I am a man, and then I find that I am different from other people, and then therefore I am limited, I am confined to this, and I feel a sense of confinement. In every thought about, every complex about me or conclusion about me, the sense of confinement is always involved. Sense of exclusion is involved, confinement is involved, and therefore limitedness is involved, and therefore a lack or want is involved. That's why I'm unhappy. On one hand, Upanishad says that the limitless is happiness, which is I am happiness, but I find myself essentially unhappy person. There are moments when I become free from unhappiness, but usually in all my waking hours, there is a sense of lack or want that always accompanies with the idea of I. Therefore, living in the present becomes very important. Then living in the happiness means becoming free from that unhappiness, sadness. We talked about it this morning. Therefore, living in the present requires a certain disposition of mind where I can clearly see what I am not, recognize what I am, and be that, abide in that. If you look at ourselves thus, we do not really live in the present. In my normal thinking, and the past intrudes the present, the future intrudes the present, or the present gets distracted from the present. Sometimes the past dominates my mind, sometimes the future dominates my mind, sometimes the distraction of the present dominates my mind. I hardly enjoy a moment when I am simply what I am. I hardly enjoy a moment when I am in the present. Either I am in the past, or I am in the future, or I am distracted from myself in the present. So that's what we meant by that state of mind which is free from the past and the future and the distraction of the present. Therefore, living in the present requires this to be done with my mind. In what way does the past intrude the present? What is it that drags me into the past? I'm here, but then still I think of what all happened to me in the past, what did not happen to me in the past, the way I was treated in the past, what I was not treated, what I got, what I did not get. All of that can be summarized as far as the past is concerned. What about the past that dominates my mind often are the hurts and guilts of the past. As we live our life, we go through a variety of experiences. And particularly when we are young, surrounded by people who are stronger and more, dominant, then very often I felt that I was not treated in a fair manner, that they were not fair to me. Either sometimes my parents, sometimes my uncles, sometimes my siblings, sometimes my neighbors, sometimes my teachers, sometimes other people. And there cannot be anybody, generally speaking, who did not feel that they were not wronged, who did not feel that there was unfairness to them, even though it may not be there, but a child feels that way. Even the parent may be kind, but still, because I was suffering from cold at one point in time, and so when my father gave me a candy, then my brother, he gave 2 candies. Please give me 2 candies. No, you will get only 1. Why? Because you have cold and cough, and therefore I should not give you more. You should not eat more candies. Why did he give him 2 candies? Because he is all right, he has no problem. I don't want this candy. I throw away. So that time I felt that this was not right. That why should I be treated in this way? This was my perception. Understand? I'm not suggesting that I was treated unfairly from the standpoint of the one who treated me. But the child has his own perception. So from the perception of the child, very often I felt that they were not fair to me. And usually everybody doesn't matter to me. In each one of us life there are always some, in Puja Swami, there were some significant few. Like father may be significant, mother may be significant, older brother, older sister, uncle, neighbor, teacher. And there are people in everybody's life who are significant, whose opinion matters to me, whose treatment affects me. And therefore, when I felt that I was not treated fairly by these people, whatever my definition of fairness be, that's what matters because it affects me. So, most of the people, if not everybody, there can be some exception, I don't know, but most people, most human beings, must have passed through various situations which are very painful, where I may have felt that I was not treated fairly, it was not fairness, not justice. I got hurt. So thus, it is quite likely that we carry many hurts from the past. You may not, if you are fortunate, you may not carry. But more often than not, many of us also carry this hurt from the past, the way I was treated. And there are many occasions when I may have mistreated other people. I may have given a slap to my younger sister, something like that. Because when you are treated badly, you mistreat somebody else. And also I remember how I was cruel. I was not fair, I was not nice. I hurt other people. That makes me feel guilty. So when we interact with the world, it's quite likely, even in the present also, that we may come away with an impression that either I was not treated fairly and therefore I feel hurt, or I did not treat somebody fairly and therefore I feel guilty. This hurts and guilts. Whenever they come in my mind, and what happens is that it sometimes happens that what happens in the present triggers something in the past. Presently, I'm interacting with you. You say something in a manner, in some ways, which somehow triggers something, pushes some button. You haven't done anything. There are so many buttons within me. And it happens often that even when I'm interacting with world means people, usually tables and chairs don't bother us, they don't create any hurt. Even cows and buffalo also don't. Or birds and insects, they don't. They cause pain but not hurt. Hurt is a different thing. A mosquito can bite me, can cause me pain, but I'm not hurt. I don't feel insulted by a mosquito, usually. Don't feel insulted or rejected by buffalo because buffalo doesn't look at me. Our problem is the other human beings generally. That way, even a child can hurt me when I expect something from somebody, when that expectation is not fulfilled, often I take it personally. And I feel hurt. And guilt, whenever I act out of some impulse, out of anger, out of jealousy, then what I do is not in my control. My impulse takes over me and makes me do something which I regret later on. Sometimes I say something out of excitement, out of anger, out of jealousy, when I'm not in control of myself, and then I regret later on. As I say something, I do something, sometimes I think of something also, that also makes me unhappy because I expect myself not to think like that. So, in our experiences in our life, it is happening in the present also, but it also happened in the past. And those things are not resolved. If things that happened to me in the past have resolved them, then perhaps the past may not bother me. But a lot of things may not be resolved and therefore they are still hanging up into my mind. Like floating, in the mind, come up again and again. And for that, the present becomes the occasion or a triggering point. What happens in the present has some parallel somewhere. So you say something to me. I'm a 60, 70-year-old person, And you say something, somehow your voice, your demeanor, your behavior, you're looking at me, you're speaking in a certain way, you trigger something to what somebody treated me when I was 6-year-old, and I get transferred. So they call it, this is transference and stuff like that they talk. But what I'm saying is that at that time, I behave not as a grown-up person. I just behave as a child because I forget that I am what I am. I just become that. So somebody is, maybe my sister treated me in a certain way, and this person somehow reminds me of that or creates that thing, and so something, and I transferred back in the past. And I behave not as a person that I am, but I behave as what I did at that time. And then I regret. So, one thing that deprives me of being in the present is the past. And what about the past? Those experiences which are nature of hurt and guilt, whenever they come in my mind, and they will, as long as they are not resolved, they are likely to come back, because somebody may treat me in a certain way and it may again trigger something, push some button. So Swami used to say, even between spouses this can happen, that there can be transference. Or in the beginning, you like the person, a lot of respect for the person, you feel very comfortable with the person. And when I feel comfortable, then I slowly become my normal self. Usually when I relate to you, I always have some facade. I'm not my real self. Usually always some kind of facade, some acting is involved. But as I feel more and more comfortable with you, when I feel safe with you, then slowly my true self starts coming out. And then my expectations from you keep on growing. And a time may come that those expectations are not fulfilled, and again I may get hurt. So this hurt and guilt, for that the basis is already there, as Lord Krishna says. And we discussed this elaborately in one of our retreats. Yenam veti hantaram yaschenam manyate hatam ubhautanu vijanitaha nayam hantina hanyate. Lord Krishna says one who thinks that he is hurting somebody. The other person says who is hurt, both of them do not know. Nayamanti nahanyate. Atma does not hurt anybody, nor gets hurt by anybody. Meaning that when I feel hurt, then it is I do not know. Nayam bhautonu vijanita. They do not know who they truly are. So one who hurt also does not know what his true nature is. One who is guilty also does not know what the true nature is. And therefore, all of these ultimately arises from the ignorance of the true nature of myself. Why is it so? Because I lump together something with the self. Who can hurt somebody? A boss can hurt the subordinate. Then identify one aspect of my personality, I become boss. Who can feel hurt? Somebody, my boss can hurt me when I become so and so. A so and so alone can hurt somebody, and so can be hurt by somebody. That so and so belongs to this costume of body mind, and therefore ignorance causes that identification, complexes, and therefore these things arise. So one important thing, one thing that deprives me of living in the present is a past in the form of the hurts and guilt to the past. In my mind, whenever the past comes, past hurts or guilts come, then I get transported back in the past. At that time, I am not in the present. The other thing is the future. The future also sometimes dominates my mind in the present. What in the future? Well, the anxieties and fears and anxieties of the future. Why fears? Why anxieties? Because future is uncertain. I do not know what the future will be. So what's the problem? You do not know what the future will be. What does it matter? No. I want it to be in a certain way. That I do not know something is not a problem. But I want that thing to be what I want. Means I want my future to be favorable to me, comfortable to me, pleasant. I am not willing to accept unpleasant. My unwillingness to confront the unpleasant, confront the painful, or what I call painful, that is what causes anxieties in my mind. What will happen? What if this? And that comes up when I perform any action also. That's why Lord Krishna treated this basic thing in his very famous statement, Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. When I perform the karma or any action, the outcome is uncertain. I do not know what the outcome will be. And I want my outcome to be always pleasant, what I call successful. I am not willing to confront failure. Failure is not acceptable to me. Failure is not pleasant. Therefore, my unwillingness to confront the unpleasant is what causes anxiety. If you don't care what happens, there's no anxiety. I don't care. Hey, you're going to appear in the examination, you have not worked hard enough, you may fail. I don't care. If there is somebody like that, and there are some people like that, I'll repeat. You won't get admission in engineering, I don't care. You won't get a good salary, I don't care. You won't have a house like this, I don't care. I don't need help with somebody, but suppose somebody is there who doesn't care, then there's no anxiety. But we care. No, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a doctor. What if not? I want prosperity. I want comfort. What if it is not? And my definition of comfort is this kind of a house and this kind of transportation and this kind of surroundings. We'll talk about what I'm saying is this uncertainty of the future. That's how Ishvara has created this life. The future is uncertain. They say that even Lord Rama did not know what was going to happen next morning. Lord Rama also did not know what was going to happen next morning. Previous evening, Lord Rama was told by his father, King Dasharatha, that you're going to be coronated tomorrow. Next morning brought something else. Although he did not have anxiety, he did not have, why? Because प्रसन्नताम याचन गता भिषेकतः तथा न ममले वनवास दुःखतः मुखाम्बुजश्री रघुनंदनस्य मे करोतु सा मंगलम सदा. Tulsidas says, remembering or meditating upon the Mukhambuja the beauty and the pleasantness, the cheerfulness of the face of Lord Rama. Like a fully blossomed lotus is like the face of Lord Rama is like a fully blossomed lotus. Very pleasant, very cheerful, very beautiful. That cheerfulness, he says, Mukhambuja Shri. Shri means beauty. Mukhambuja, Ambuja means lotus. Mukhambuja, lotus of the face. The beauty, the cheerfulness, the lotus of the face of Lord Rama was not overjoyed or, was not elated when he heard that tomorrow you're going to be coronated. Tathana mamale vanavasa dukkataha. Next morning when he was told that you have to go to forest for 14 years. The mamale, that lotus remained blossomed. It did not fade away. The cheerfulness, pleasantness remained. The face remained like a cheerful blossomed lotus. Mukhambuja Shri Raghunandasame Karotu Sa Mangalam Sada. May that beauty and cheerfulness and happiness of the face of my Lord Rama always bless me. But this is a case where there was no anxiety for the future. Because if Lord Rama expected that I should be coronated, then the news of going to forest would have devastated him, is it not so? Because whole night you have been dreaming what am I going to do and what will happen, I'll be now the crown prince tomorrow morning and what all it means. Then you are told that you have to go to forest, one person will be devastated. Or he did not know and his father calls him and says you are going to be crowned prince tomorrow. He did not expect it and he'll be overjoyed, elated. So this would be the reaction of a normal person who doesn't want to confront the unpleasant, and he always wants the pleasant things to happen to him. He is an exception. That the news of coronation did not create elation in him. Elation means going out of control. There is harsha or elation. That time I am not in control of myself, my mind takes over me. I am not talking about cheerfulness or happiness, I am talking about elation and depression. So typically his mind was free from these reactions, meaning that he was abiding in himself. That's how Lord Krishna describes. We talked about a wise person this morning who is living in the present and who is free from all these reactions. Atmaneva atmana tushtaha sthita prajnas tadochyate. So sthita prajna, or a man of abiding wisdom who is happy with himself, by himself. When I am happy with myself, then I am not dependent upon anything else for my happiness. Follow. Atmaneva atmana tushta, contented, satisfied, happy with himself, by himself. What is meant by my being happy with myself is that I am not dependent upon anything else for my happiness. I do not need something else to make me happy. Since I am happy with myself, by myself, therefore, I do not need something else to make me happy. And since for my happiness I do not depend upon anything else, nothing can make me unhappy also. This is how Lord Krishna describes a wise person. Since he is described as the one who is happy with himself, by himself, that means that he is not dependent upon anybody else, anything else for his happiness. That means nothing can disappoint him, isn't it? He is not dependent upon anything. So this is called living in the present, is described like this. Nothing can disappoint him, nothing can make him happy. Dukkheshu anudvignamanaha sukheshu vigataspruha. Next line describes. Dukkheshu anudvignamanaha. What is normally called unfavorable, painful situations, normally called. What the world will call painful situation. Is it not going to forest for 14 years? It is not, forest is not, we can fantasize the forest in our mind, how wonderful it would be just until you go there. You don't go with entourage and in forest you create a cabin and then, no, he just went by himself. With nothing with him, as best as we know, nothing. That means you are simply in a nature with all the elements, and forest means it may rain also, shine also, heat and cold, all kinds of things are there. And that is what was described to Sita. He says, you want to go to with Rama, but you know what forest means. It means all kinds of, not only hardships. Going to forest means embracing a life of hardship. And people did go on their own accord. Many kings and many people also retired in the forest for penance because they were ready for that. But here you are thrown into forest. Go to forest. Not for a day or two, 14 years of life of hardship. There can be hunger and there can be thirst and cold and heat and rain. And supposedly walking barefoot. I tried it once or twice and I know what happens to your feet when you are, every pebble pinches you after a little while. But even this prospect also did not make him unhappy. Dukkheshu anudvignamanaha. One's manas or mind is anudvigna, but udvega is not there. Agitation is not there. Anxiety is not there. Sorrow is not there. At least we can enjoy this, this picture that how nice would it be if I was like that. How nice would it be when in my mind there is no distress, no anxiety, no sorrow, no sadness, regardless of what the situation is and what the world calls unpleasant situation or painful, then also nothing happens to my mind. Suppose there was something like that, which is how Lord Krishna describes and which is how we find many in the other scriptures and world over. Lord Rama is one of the most shining examples. We say he was God, Swamiji. All right. But there is this young boy Nachiketa, whose story is described in the Kathopanishad. And his father says, I am giving you to death. So, Pitaji, who are you going to give me in charity, dhanam? Mrityavetva dadami, I am giving you to death, means just get lost. That's what mother would say, go and jump in the well. Sometimes children can be quite what shall I say, testing. She's busy doing something and you go and jump in the well. Father may say, get lost. That doesn't mean you get lost. You don't jump in the well. But this fellow did. Then Nachiketa was told, I'm giving you to death. All right, I'll go to death. You know what it means, you have to die. Well, that's what you say, and your words must come true. You should not go back on your words. And I must make sure that your words are respected and honored. What does it mean? I'll die. What's the big deal? What do you mean you will die? What is this body after all? Satsamiva pachyate, satsamiva ajayate punaha. Like paddy in the field. It becomes ripened and falls down, and so this body will fall down. It will grow again. The body also will come back again. We're just giving you exceptional descriptions here, but then, so there could be something like that. Dukkheshu anudvignamana. In the situation which can be called painful, involving a lot of hardship and a lot of pain and suffering, also the mind is free from udvega, from agitation, from distress, from anxiety, from fear. Describing an ideal situation. Sukheshu vigataspruha. This is a description of one living in the present. Sukheshu vigataspruha. Spruha means longing. What is longing? You give me one plate of ice cream, then can I have a second one? Typically, children are very open, frank. One can I have a second one, Swamiji? Even if I want, I will not say it, but then they say that. Because when we get something which makes us happy, we want more of it. The mind longs for happiness. So, something that makes me happy creates also longing to have more of it. The experience of happiness doesn't just end there. It leaves a longing in my mind. It's very nice candy. How nice would it be if I had one more of it? Or I would have it again in future. So they come to Swamiji. Because this Swamiji gives these candies, and so I thought they like me, but they like the candies actually. But that is so with any experience of happiness. Experience of happiness, you create in an ordinary person a desire to have more, that's called longing. This is called spruha. Vigata spruha. Thus, what is considered a happy situation or an experience of happiness does not create any longing in this person. Meaning the experience is completed there and then. In our case, every experience leaves some residue. Unpleasant experience leaves a residue also, I don't want it again. A pleasant experience leaves a residue. How if I had, I would have that experience again. Meaning that we don't, so even though something happens in present, my mind thinks of future, that I would like to have this. Or, I don't want this again. And so mind would be always working how to create the situation again so that I can have the happiness again. Or what to avoid that unhappiness which I had in the present. So how the present also is dominated by what can likely happen in future. For the wise person here, the Lord Krishna describes no distress in what is called unpleasant, no longing in what is pleasant. What makes his mind like this? What's the difference between the mind that a wise person possesses and the other people? Lord Krishna says, वीतराग भय क्रोधः स्थितधिः मुनिः उच्यते. Vita, raga, bhaya, krodha. Vita, that from which these things have gone away. Raga, bhaya, krodha. What's the reason why he is composed in all situations? That he abides in himself in all situations. Because his mind is free from raga, bhaya, and krodha. Raga, attachment, bhaya, fear, krodha, anger. Sthitadihi munihi uchyate. He is called Sthitadihi, one whose dhi or the knowledge is abiding. Munihi, a contemplative one who always aware of the self, aware of the reality of the self. So this is how Lord Krishna describes a person living in the present, and this is described in many other verses also to present a role model before us. This description was given by Lord Krishna in response to Arjuna's question. Oh Lord, what are the lakshanas, what are the characteristics, inherent characteristics of a wise person? Why did Arjuna ask that? Because he wanted to become one. Because he realized that that is what the real success in life is. He came to battlefield seeking success, no doubt. And somehow he realized that that is not real success. Kindo rajyana govinda kim bhogehi jivitena va. Hey Govinda, what is there in kingdom? What is there in means of pleasure? What is there in long life? What is so far? Until that point, he thought that this is what is the real goal of life. That is called success. But he acquired some state of mind where he could see that no, this is not success. He wanted success, and every human being wants success. And from the teaching of Lord Krishna in the second chapter, Arjuna realized what success is. Therefore he asks, what are the lakshanas, the inherent characteristics of a successful person? Kosthita prajna. When we hear these words, then we can't relate to those things, but if he's a successful person, then we can relate very well. Because success we want. And we have our own idea of what the success is. So Lord Krishna gives the right idea of what success is by describing how a successful person is. So with that role model, then we will know what we should do with ourselves in order to progressively become that. Then the right way of living in the present would be, in what way should we live so that we progressively advance in the direction of becoming what it is that we want to be. That was the reason why Lord Krishna describes the Sthita Prajna for Arjuna. So here is a description of one who lives in the present. And this is what we want to be. No, Swami, I don't care. I don't know bothered about it, but you cannot but care. Even if I say I don't care, I do care. Because unhappiness is not acceptable to me. Failure is not acceptable to me. Happiness alone is acceptable. And this is the happiness description of a happy person. And therefore we have to do that, if not today, tomorrow. We are born with this agenda. Born with this agenda of this destination, knowingly or unknowingly. And therefore, if better we understand, more intelligently we can live than today or tomorrow, that destination which we are seeking can be attained. So we'll continue our discussion tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.